Hello, today is Thursday, October 20th, 2016, and I am your host, Sue Brown, and welcome to info2rail, your freight train to modern media. How y'all doing today? I want to welcome you all to our show, and we have a great show in store for you. We're very fortunate to have, by popular demand, everybody flooded my emails for him, owner of StarDust Ranch and ET contact, John Edmonds, with us. And with him will be Alyzabeth Augusts. We are looking forward to this interview. It's going to be a great one today. First, a little glimpse into our missing persons files. We have a missing teen, maybe suicidal. Freedom Michelle Dole, age 16, was last seen in Council Bluffs, Iowa on October 18th, 2016. Freedom is 5'3", weighs 150 pounds, has short red hair, blue eyes, a large noticeable light brown birthmark on her left cheek, and several tattoos, including an ICP hatchet man on her ankle. The name Anthony just above the inside of her right elbow, and a semicolon butterfly on the inside of her wrist. She requires daily medication and does not have her meds with her. She suffers from mental health issues and is suicidal. She wears a baseball cap often and sometimes wears glasses. Anyone with any information, please contact the Council Bluffs Police Department at 712-328-4701 or call your local law enforcement agency by dialing 911. Again, you guys, I cannot stress, and I know I say this every show and I sound like a broken record, but I cannot stress to you enough how important it is to me that we band together to find these missing people. I have to say that I'm blown away, probably in the last 3 weeks to a month. I go through the missing person files constantly so I can get the leads out there and maybe somebody will find these people. But I am blown away and saddened by how many kids right around between the ages of 10 and 18 that are missing daily. They don't come home from school, or they're going missing out of their own yards or their own rooms. This is crazy, you guys. I don't know what's going on, but I mean, I know that there's all this trafficking going on and all this, and now with this clown scare, you guys, please, and I beg you, from one parent to another, please keep a good eye on your kids. You know, for that extra little time that you're not going to be there when they get off the bus or whatever, you know, ask a neighbor to keep a watch for your child when they get off the bus, or, you know, just, I beg you to keep a good eye on your kids, because I can't even imagine what these parents are going through whose children just don't come home and they can't find them. The panic and the absolute hell that they go through not knowing where their kids are or their loved ones. I mean, this is happening to adults, young mothers as well. So, and sadly, you know, I'm not leaving out the boys or the men in this either, because it's happening with them as well. And I urge you guys, with a parent's urgency, to please keep better tabs on your kids. I mean, even if they're teenagers, I know they don't like to be hovered over, but at least they'll be alive and you'll know where they are. The second missing teen is Bethany Clubb, age 17, of Tulare, California, was last seen by friends in the 1900 block of East Harvard Street in Tulare on October 14th, 2016. Bethany is 5'4", weighs 118 pounds, has blonde hair and bluish-green eyes. She was last seen wearing a white shirt, blue jeans, and light-colored Converse. Anyone with any information on her location, please contact the Tulare Police Department at 559-684-4290 or your local law enforcement agency by dialing 911. Again, you guys, I'm not going to go into that whole spiel again, but please keep a good eye on your kids and look out for, I put these pictures right up on my website. Look out for these kids, because somebody has to. Okay, we're going to take a break, and when we return, we will have John Edmonds and Alyzabeth Augusts with us. Stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back with John Edmonds and Alyzabeth Augusts. John Edmonds is the owner of StarDust Ranch, home of Hopeful Hooves, and an equine rescue facility for abandoned, starving, or severely abused horses. For the last 19 years, StarDust Ranch has been the location of many strange UFO and ET encounters. Such events include many close encounters of the third kind with flying saucers, black triangles, and gray alien beings. Video, photo, alien artifacts, and blood tissue samples have been collected and analyzed over a number of years as physical proof of the events as they occur. John is a professional counselor and therapist with more than 25 years of experience, practice working with many different populations, including family and addiction counseling, crisis, forensic population, and PTSD counseling to deal with trauma, abductions, and PTSD. Alyzabeth August is a nurse, and she has had the opportunity to visit StarDust Ranch and stay there, and she has actually had the opportunity to encounter these aliens on this planet and witness a lot of things that go on there. So she is going to join John, and she's going to talk with us about what she's experienced. Hello, John and Alyzabeth. Welcome to info2rail, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having us. I appreciate it.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how this came about to be a way of your life?
Well, it's sort of a strange story, but I'm professionally trained and educated as a counselor and as a therapist, and I have about 30 years of experience doing this. And back in 1996, my wife and I decided that we wanted to go ahead and get a ranch. We were, living here in Arizona. We were living in Glendale, Arizona at the time. And I decided that I really wanted to move out to the country and have horses and just try to enjoy kind of like the old Arizona, sort of the concept of living on a ranch and just having peace and, hopefully a relaxing way of life. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. We bought the ranch, and practically as soon as we bought the ranch out here in Rainbow Valley, Arizona, within a very short period of time, we began to have a lot of strange experiences, and those strange experiences just continued on and on and on. And here we are, 21 years later, and we seem to be the longest ongoing example of a paranormal situation where we have active interaction with aliens, gray aliens specifically, and the ranch just seems to be a combination of different stargates or portals that things just keep coming in and out of. That's just a real short overview.
I have heard your story, and I've read a lot about your story. Can you tell us what you've experienced?
Well, in general, like I said, after we moved out here, to give you an idea, the folks that owned this ranch before we moved in, when they sold it to us, we paid cash for it. We were ready to move in, and we got here, and all their stuff was still here, like they hadn't planned to move out. And so, we were a little bit perplexed by that. And we called the realtor and we said, hey, we're out here with our moving truck from Glendale. We got all our stuff in it. We gave up our rental property. We have no place to live. We're homeless because these guys haven't moved out. And he was, he thought it was really weird. He tried to get hold of them. Finally, he eventually came to the property and talked to them. And they agreed to move out. They told us to come back that night and we could move in. Well, we did all that. We went to a couple of movies. We went out to eat. We burned up as much time as we could. And finally, we came back at the appointed time. And now all of their furniture and all their personal belongings was in a large diving pool that was here on the property. And again, we were horrified by that. And we turned around and we said, what's up? We still couldn't talk to them directly. And we never found out. They just disappeared and left all their stuff behind. And we ended up, mostly me, having to fish it out of the pool and drag it out to the curb and leave it out there for somebody to pick it up, which I did. It took me about 3 days. I was not happy with it. So that was one of the very first things that happened here on the property.
Are they found? Are they safe?
You mean the people that own this place?
Yes.
We have no idea. We never saw or heard from them again.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like the first day.
That's crazy. I mean, I makes me wonder if they're not abducted, or, I mean, if they're still with us on this earth.
Well, we knew only that the husband was somebody who worked at Luke Air Force Base, which is about 15 miles north of us. And the wife was, I think she was in real estate or something, I don't know. But we never heard anything from them again, so we don't know. And then shortly after that, this occurred like on a Saturday, and my wife went back to her job on Monday. And when she went to work that Monday, I was busy trying to put all our stuff away and put furniture in the house and, trying to set up the ranch. And I saw this man coming up the driveway. And he looked very disheveled. He kind of looked like somebody who was maybe homeless, or somebody that, might have been like I don't know. I hate to say he looked like a vet, but he did. He looked, he had an army jacket on, long hair, kind of looked like what stereotypically we would say looks like a Vietnam vet. And I went out to meet him, and I just had a weird feeling. So I ended up taking a 357 Magnum and putting it down the back of my pants and just, putting it there so I had some sense of protection in case something happened. And this guy had a big machete he was carrying, and he just had it with a piece of leather looped around the handle, and he was just swinging it, just back and forth. And just real bad vibe, real spooky vibe to him. So I walked out there and I met him, and I said, hello, sir, what are you doing? And he goes, well, this is my property. And I said, what do you mean it's your property? He goes, well, I live here. I'm the caretaker. I live back there in that building. And I said, well, nobody ever told me about you, and I just bought the property, and I don't really have a need for a caretaker. I can take care of this place myself. And he just looked at me, and he gets this very quizzical smile on his face, and he kind of cocked his head. And, this is a guy with real long hair, and, he just kind of looked just scrubby, just weird. And he just looked at me with these kind of crazy eyes, and he said, well, I'm the guy that makes all the monsters go away. And I said, what do you mean, monsters? What monsters? And he goes, you don't know about the monsters? And I said, no. And I started thinking to myself, man, this could be a great con. The guy's trying to scare me, so I'll let him stay. And, he kept saying, well, there's monsters here. And they've been here for a long time. And the old owners let me stay in the back there in the not the guest house, in the tack room, which is like a little tiny old building that's, like 10 feet by 12 feet. And mostly people use it for tack for horses and things. But apparently they were letting him stay there so he'd have a place to stay. And, he decided that this ranch was his, and that, he was in charge of making sure everything was safe around here. And I explained to him, I said, look, I get that. I appreciate that, but I have no need for you, and I'm not ready to pay anybody to stay here. And he just shook his head, and he smiled, and he goes, well, you're going to be really sorry, because I'm the guy that kills the monsters.
Wow.
And I said, okay, thanks anyway. And I kind of shuffled him off the property. And I was, after that, I was saying to myself, well, we live so far from town because we live about 45 minutes from Phoenix. And I thought to myself, there's always weirdos that, kind of hang out, I guess, in places like this. And that was a very stereotypical thing for me to say. And as a counselor, it was probably very wrong for me to say that. But, I'm honest about how I feel, and that's what was going through my head. So he just toddled off into the desert someplace, and I never heard from him or saw him again.
Wow, that is creepy.
Yeah, they call him the machete guy, and that's exactly what it was.
So I hear that I saw on Ghost Adventures, Alyzabeth was on there, and she had an experience at StarDust Ranch. Can you share your experience with us, Alyzabeth?
Yeah, I sure can. I met John. I had seen a video on YouTube, and I only watched it for like 5 minutes, and I was familiar with it. Well, we had a mutual friend that I met up with, and that's how I met John. And I asked him if I'd come to the ranch, and he said sure. So I was coming out to the ranch regularly because I wanted to see if I could see it for myself, you know. And you know, it was slow. I kept thinking, well, they're never going to show up if I'm here. And then one night, it was late, and we were waiting for Joyce to get back, and there was a storm. And out here, the roads will flood, and your car will get washed off into a wash, and, you know, it's real dangerous. So John said for me to stay, and so I did, and I was on the couch, and I just couldn't sleep. I could not sleep. It was like this place, you know, it's kind of like static electricity. That's how it felt, and I just couldn't get comfortable. And I dozed off a little bit, and then I opened my eyes. It was really dark. It was pretty dark, and I wear glasses, so I was seeing these shadow figures everywhere, and I was freaking out. I was like, okay, what is this? And I couldn't make it out. You know, it was like it wasn't like a shadow. It looked like 3D, you know, but it wasn't a shadow. It was like a shadow, but not. It's hard for me to explain. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this at all. And I'm one of these people, I don't care if, you know, the earth is going to explode. I need my sleep. So I didn't know how to wake John up, and I didn't want to wake him up. And I was thinking maybe there's just radon gas out here, and I'm just, you know, I'm you know, hallucinating on something that's in the air. And I just didn't know how to, like, place it in context. So I got in my car, I left the ranch, I locked the door, and I go out to the gate, and the gate's locked. So I have to get John up. So I got John up, and he let me out, and he asked me what happened. I told him I'd tell him the next day. So I did. And, you know, and after coming out here after that happened to try to figure out what happened that night, during the day, I saw the top of one of the little aliens' heads. Or whatever, it's a gray, but it wasn't gray, it was like a yellow, like a yellowy color, like I don't know. How can I describe that yellow?
Kind of
like a pale mustard yellowish color. Yeah. And I thought, did I just see that? All I had to do is wait a little bit, and I saw another one. So it was just like, but you can't get a whole view of them. At least I can't. I wanted to see one in full view, full frontal, you know, I wanted to see it. But I would catch parts of it. They kind of sneak around. I guess, I don't know if they sneak around during the day, and the cat sees them. the cat catches them, and the cat will let you know when one's around, and you can kind of get a glimpse of one, which is really crazy.
Did you know? Did you know what it was? Did you know it was an alien?
No, I didn't. I thought they were supposed to be gray. So I'm thinking, what the heck was that? I'm like, he doesn't have any bald dogs running around here. I don't know. You know, I just didn't know what to think about it. And so I kept coming out to get more of a picture, more of what's going on, more evidence, more sightings and stuff. And so I'm coming out here all the time, and I'm just getting glimpses of these little jerks running around. And I'm like, this is not cool. Come on out, you know, because I'm getting frustrated. So one night we went out to feed the horses, and I looked up in the sky, and my friend Angelina lived out here, and she told me there's orange things in the sky, and I'm like, what? I'm like, whatever. So it's been about 6 months, and I go outside, and I see these orange lights, and they're just sitting there. And then they start doing this synchronized swimming stuff. And I'm like, I don't know of any military equipment that does that. I don't know. Maybe this is alien technology that the military has. I don't know what it is. But it was exactly the way Angelina described it. And I got it on video, but then I got all embarrassed and I erased it because And that's how I am. I'm really skeptical, so it's taken a lot for me to come out and tell people this story. Because when we did Ghost Adventures, people were friending me on Facebook trying to get me to talk, and I'm like, I don't know anything. I didn't want to say anything. And I know what this looks like. This looks like I'm schizophrenic or delusional or whatever. I know, but I know I saw it because I don't have that great of an imagination. I don't know. Mm-mm. I know what I saw, and it was weird. I can't blame it on any animals. I can't, because the animals aren't in the house. I mean, if they are, then we know which ones they are, and we know what they look like, But he doesn't have any yellowish, bald dogs running around here. And they're like, what they say, they're like about 3 feet tall. I think these were about 3 feet tall. They weren't 4 feet tall. They were shorter. Because they, it's just weird. And then I was in the kitchen one day. Remember that? In the kitchen. And, it's the weirdest feeling. I'm sitting in the kitchen, and all of a sudden, the floor, and like an earthquake. And I'm like, I'm not in California. I don't know what's going on here. And it was like a certain type of energy just went through my body. It was right by the fridge. If you've ever been out here, if you look at Ghost Adventures and they have a scene of the kitchen. And I said, John, stand right here, because I was going to make sure somebody felt what I was feeling, because, at this point I'm thinking, oh, man, I'm starting to lose it. So he stands there, and he described it as exactly the way I described the way I felt. And he'd done that to me before. We went to a meeting, the reptilians. People think, I don't know, I've never seen them turn green and get scales or anything, but I've seen their eyes turn. And this guy walks in while we're in this meeting, and I saw his eyes flash, and I'm like, okay, I got your number, boy. I was like, I see you, and I know you see me see you, so whatever. And I didn't know John's point. This is right at the inception of our meeting where we're going to meet. And John, after the meeting, I go up and talk to him, and I go, yeah, there's a reptilian here. He goes, yeah, that guy over there. I was like, yeah, that guy over there. So I was confirming that I kind of wasn't crazy at that point. I was just like, I was starting to see things. I was starting to be awakened and see the reality, and it's like, that was a trip. And those are the only things I've seen. That's about it from my experience.
Can you tell me your background on what you do?
Nursing. And I studied psychology intensely, and I dated a psychiatrist.
Do you have psychic abilities?
Well, after what's happened, I don't know. Yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, I could categorize it in that aspect because, I'm seeing this stuff. I'm seeing these eyes flash at me, and I'm not the kind of person that's kind of, I'll investigate. I'll stare right at their face. I don't have a problem, and they can think whatever, but I will get to the truth. And I would stare at them, and I would see it happen, and I'm like, well, maybe it's an optical illusion. Maybe it's, and I've got all these questions, but then when somebody corroborates what I thought, like seeing the guy that was a reptilian and John saying he's a reptilian, I'm like, you can't fake that. You can't fake that. If somebody can describe what you're feeling, or somebody, John's psychic, he's picked up some stuff about me that's just been out of this world. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, well, how did you get through your career, dealing with the skeptics and the scientists without them calling you back to crazy, But, I tell my boyfriend this stuff, and he's all into this whole alien thing, and he's because all the scientists now, or most of them, are taking that stance where they can't deny it, so they have to kind of embrace it a bit, because they look stupid if they just outright deny it. But it's a little deeper with us. I believe it to be true, and especially since coming out here to this ranch, because I've never had any encounters ever before. And I'm RH negative. Everybody says, oh, you should have been abducted. I'm like, I've never been abducted. I've never seen an alien. I've never seen anything weird in the sky. Never. Till I met John. And then that was the end of this hanging on to my shred of sanity.
So what does RH negative have to do with being abducted? I've never heard that.
Well, what got me on this whole truth-seeking vibe was my blood's Rh negative, and neither one of my parents are Rh negative. So I started getting into the science of it. Well, two positives can make a negative. However, the letter type, like O, A, B, and AB, that doesn't change. If you have parents that are A, B, and O, you can get all three. If you have parents that are B or O, you're going to have a B or O child, or an A or O child. Well, my letter type and my RH is different than my parents, so that sends a shiver down your spine, because you're like, am I adopted? So that was my first quest, and then I started researching the RH negative blood, and then I started getting all this what I thought was hokey, crazy conspiracy theory crap on the internet, and it's all about RH negatives being abducted, and then Linda Moulton Howell talking about Rh negatives, and everybody talking about Rh negatives and how the majority of people that have been abducted are Rh negative. And I'm like, well, I've never been abducted. So as far as I know, people, they say they might erase your memory or whatever, but I can't give any account of it at all.
I'm Rh negative, so that's why I asked. That's crazy.
Have you been abducted?
I don't know. Sometimes I begin to wonder.
Yeah, I don't have any recollection of any of that.
So, John, can you tell us your first actual run-in with these aliens?
Well, it kind of leads up to it. It was a gradual process. We started seeing, my wife and I, because we have horses, and we adopt horses because we're an actual 501c3 horse rescue called Hopeful Hooves. We are outside in the evening a lot, and we're outside actually during the day a lot. And, so we see a lot. And we began to see these lights in the south sky. And I began to call them orange orbs or golden orbs, because I really didn't know any other way to describe them other than just what they look like. And out of nowhere, they would just show up in little groups, and there'd be like 3 of them at a time, and they would always be absolutely like on a straight line, and they'd be equidistant, spaced on that straight line. And, at first, I thought, oh, maybe they're flares or something, because we have the Goldwater military range that's south and west of us by about 20, 25 miles. And so a lot of times activity goes on out there that's military. And so, like Alyzabeth, I was always trying to find a rational, reasonable explanation for the things that we experienced. I didn't want to just jump to conclusions and, jump on the crazy train and say, hey, it's all this other stuff. I was trying to find some kind of rationality the best I could. And unfortunately, instead of being able to find good rational answers, we ended up, having to go to the far extremes and experience and describe things for what they really are, at least what we're seeing and experiencing. And so the orbs started showing up in these little groups of 3, and they're big. I mean, the ranch is 17 miles away north of where these orbs show up, okay? And they show up in an area called the Estrella Mountains, and the ranch is surrounded by them. And so, I actually drove out there and measured to find out exactly how far it was on the odometer on my truck. And we began to see these orange lights showing up in much larger groups, and they would show up routinely, 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes more. And this went on for years and years, and I videotaped it. And then we started seeing things that were even stranger, like we started seeing what most people would call spacecraft, in the fact that we began to see flying saucers, and they were quite large. And we began to see triangles out here, black triangles, and it just on and on. We just kept seeing all this weird stuff. It was like the great hit parade of weird paranormal UFO stuff. And then that gradually led to the fact that we started experiencing some horrible things with animals being mutilated here. And we saw horses that, we worked very hard to adopt and train and keep them safe and well fed. And we'd go outside and find a horse absolutely mutilated in a pen. And there was no way that the horse could have jumped out of the pen. There's no way that an animal got it or anything else. These were very precision, laser-like cuts in the animal. The anus had been cored out. The hooves were removed. The tongue was removed. The eyes were removed. I mean, it was just absolutely grisly. And you know, these are animals that we actually loved and cared for, so it was heartbreaking to see these things happen. And over a period of about 2.5, 3 years, we experienced this 3 or 4 times. And of course, we made reports to the Arizona Livestock Board, the Sheriff's Department. You know, there was very thorough investigation of what happened, but there were no answers. And so we still had no idea what was going on. I ended up reporting this information, you know, gradually on the internet to various sources. And, you know, we started getting some feedback. And, you know, we had never, my wife and I, you know, we had never been around the UFO thing. We had never been part of the paranormal community. We weren't individuals that were particularly interested in any of this. It just kind of became something that we had to learn about, because if we didn't do that, we would never have been able to know what was going on. And gradually what ended up happening was we began to see the grays coming into the house. And we didn't know that they were grays. We didn't know what a gray was. We didn't know what an alien was, other than what you see on TV. And, you know, the very first time that we saw them, we were in the bedroom. My wife was asleep, and we were both laying in a king-size bed with, you know, a poster bed, you know, with big pillars on it. And, you know, we felt very secure in our bedroom. This home is a large home. It has solid brick walls. It has security doors. It has every kind of security on it that you can imagine. And we've got, you know, big dogs, and they're not particularly interested in being nice to any strangers. And so, you know, we felt very secure. We were laying in bed. My wife was asleep. And the next thing I knew, I felt like there was something in the room with me. And so I continued to just lay there and be very quiet. And the next thing I actually saw one of these gray aliens standing over me. And at that time, I kept a small baseball bat, an aluminum baseball bat that was behind the bed. And I reached down, grabbed that baseball bat, sat up in the bed, and smacked that gray as hard as I could and knocked him halfway across the room. And then he disappeared. And then I rolled over and I told my wife about it. I woke her up, and she just looked at me, and she's like, "Go to sleep. You're having a bad dream. This is, you know, a nightmare." You know, so she was not at all interested in hearing about this, and she was kind of pissed off that I woke her up in the first place. So that's how the very first experience happened, and then it just proceeded to get worse and worse and worse with more examples, more grays, and this went on for years. And finally, at one point, there was 3 grays that showed up on our patio or sun porch, whatever you want to call it, a Arizona room, you know, lots of different descriptions of what that is. But in this particular case, it's a room that's about 1,000 square feet, tile floor, windows on 3 sides, that is attached to the house. It has a door that goes to the outside carport, the door that goes to the pool, the door that goes to the backyard, and double glass doors that come into the house. And I just happened to be walking out through those glass doors, and I saw one of the grays literally just appear about 6 feet inside of that door. And I grabbed a samurai sword, because I had somebody tell me that if you have problems with these creatures, the best way to handle it is with a samurai sword. And so a friend of mine gave me one, you know, real cheapy, $40 sword, no big deal. You know, something you'd pick up at like a pawn shop. And I just had it sitting in the corner next to the door just in case. And I literally walked outside with that sword, and I stabbed that gray in the middle of the abdomen, all the way through him, into the door, or into the wall. And I pulled it out, and there was a big chunk of this creature, this alien, on the end of the sword. And before I could take the sword back to try to take the head off and hopefully make it stay here in this dimension. It just disappeared.
Wow. You have to wonder where it went.
Yeah, I think that, I've talked to some very intelligent, experienced people that are very educated about this. And what came about was an explanation that these grays are kind of, they're working slightly out of phase. And what they mean by that is that there's multiple dimensions. We're of course used to 3 dimensions? Well, they're working from a different dimension. I don't know if it's a 4th or 5th or whatever, but they're slightly out of phase. And whenever they want to actually have contact in this dimension, they travel from their dimension slightly through, and they kind of look like if you saw a video image that was unfocused. They literally kind of come through partially focused or partially formed in this dimension. And so when anything happens to them, they just take a step back into their own dimension or whatever dimension they're in, and that's how they disappear. So in our dimension, it just looks like they're just popping or just poofing, disappearing. It's just like poof, they're gone. And that's how it works.
I've always believed that, like with all these people who come forward with the shadow people and such, I've always had the belief that they're dimensional as well. And I think that when we see a shadow person, it's because they kind of popped into our dimension on accident. I think sometimes they're just as shocked to see us as we are them. So I always wondered about the dimensional aspect.
Well, we know that they can travel through solid materials like walls and windows, and they seem to be able to, make abductions occur that way, because my wife was they tried to abduct her directly out of her bed, where we had probably 3 or 4 different attempts where they levitated her, 2 to 3 feet off the surface of the bed. And then literally it was like they just tried to take her, through the door, through the hallway and out the various different rooms until they got her outside into the carport. And above the carport area in the gravel out there was a ship, and they literally tried to pull her up into a ship and take her away. And I walked outside with an AK-47 with a, big clip of ammo in it, and I just unloaded the clip until there was nothing left to shoot. And a few seconds before that, they dropped her. She had risen in this cone of light into this ship, and the next thing I knew, she was literally just dropped, straight out of the ship. And I tried to break her fall with my body and catch her, and we both fell on the ground. I got hurt. She got a little bit hurt, and the ship took off. And she woke up and she looked at me and she goes, "Where am I?" And I said, "Well, you're out in the driveway." And she goes, "What am I doing here? And what happened to you?" And I told her, I said, "You're not going to believe this, but you almost got abducted by aliens." And I explained the whole thing to her. And she was furious and she was angry, and she thanked me for breaking her fall, and she helped me get back in the house. And we just went inside and sat down and looked at each other, stared at each other in disbelief. And, she just yelled at me. She goes, "We have to sell this ranch. We have to get off this ranch. This is not worth it. I didn't come here to get abducted. I didn't come here to deal with this stuff. This was your dream. It's not my dream. I want to be done with it." And that began a long process of us trying to figure out what we were going to do next.
Is that when is that the first time that she actually came into any kind of belief in these aliens?
No, she had, for several years before that, we had been waking up with what looked like marks on our bodies from things like needles or cuts or all sorts of stuff. And the really bad thing about the situation with Joyce, and that is that she came so close to whatever the energy source is, or whatever the radiation, or we don't even really know. All we know is that because of that experience, my wife got desperately ill, and I got sick, and we both ended up with something that was diagnosed at the Mayo Clinic. And so she's literally now got a fatal diagnosis from this exposure, and we're trying to deal with it. We've worked real hard to find some solutions for it, but she has a disease that's known as scleroderma, and she ended up within 2 or 3 days after the exposure, she got very, very ill. I got very, very ill. Her skin literally started to slough off like she had leprosy. And I have photographs of all that. I have proof of all this. We have medical reports. It's been horrific. And, that's the whole thing. Being here on the ranch has been something that has been very difficult for us. We bought it with the idea it was going to be a place to relax and kind of retire someday. And it's been, sort of like the nightmare from hell on steroids ever since. And so we're dealing with it.
Do you believe that you or your wife has actually been abducted?
Yeah, we kind of know that that's definitely happened. I haven't really talked about that as part of the story. I'm hoping to finish a book that will kind of bring out the experiences that started from the time we came to the ranch up until recently. And then at some point I was going to start dealing with the abduction thing. But
okay.
For me, it's been a PTSD situation in terms of all the things that have happened. Joyce seems to be able to partition her brain in such a way that she can set it aside so that I don't think it bothers her as badly as it bothers me. But I don't have any fear, and I also don't have any ability to, go into a state of mind where the fear blocks the experience. I experience it. I remember it. I know what happened, so it's like, for me, it never goes away. I know about it all the time, and I live the nightmare every single day. My wife goes to work. She's away from here. She doesn't experience it so much. And so it's even though she's sick and, we're trying to deal with that, she doesn't deal with the emotional pain of it as much as I do, I don't think.
I think one of the biggest questions a lot of people have is why these grays or aliens choose only certain places or certain people to visit. Like, such as myself, I'm somebody who looks in the sky all the time and has yet to actually see a UFO that I can say is a UFO or have any kind of a run-in with an alien. And, that's a lot of people have asked that question. Why does it cling to certain people?
I can answer some of that. My answer would be partially because of the fact that most of the aliens that we have had the experience of dealing with have been grays. And the grays are such that they don't have any way of being able to manage their temperatures, their internal body temperature. And so they're pretty much stuck in areas that are warm. You're going to see your grays mostly in places like Arizona, New Mexico, California, Southern California, Mexico, places like that. You're not going to see them in New York so much, or Maine, or Boston, or someplace like that, Chicago, because it's too darn cold, and they just can't handle it.
Well, that makes sense. I guess now that, that puts things into a little bit better perspective for a lot of us because, us that are out there looking, all I want to see is some form of, life out there, just to be able to witness the orange lights or something. And just kind of seems that stuff doesn't happen around here.
Well, we've opened the ranch up because we get literally hundreds of requests for visits. We have people that show up without asking. We get people that, I go to leave the property and they're standing out there with cameras and, video cameras and you name it. This has become sort of a tourist stop for people that are interested in the paranormal. Again, it's the longest ongoing place that we're aware of anywhere in the world where people can actually make an arrangement and come and visit and experience it for themselves. We're not trying to become like a alien B&B or anything, but we are in a position where by arrangement we will allow people to come and stay here at the ranch, for a short visit, and we just ask them to make a financial contribution to Hopeful Hooves for the horses, to help cover some of the costs with the feed and all the stuff that has to go on with them. So we don't actually charge people for coming to the ranch. We just ask for a donation.
So is this something that you have any thoughts of actually leaving, or is this something that you have kind of grown used to and you're going to stay where you are?
I'm still planning to move, and my wife would like to move. We have the ranch up for sale. It's one of those things. So far, we're stuck here. It costs a lot of money to buy a ranch, and we have, 18 horses on property, and that's not that many horses compared to what we've had in the past. Because of the recession that's happened, horses have a tendency to be one of the first family members that gets turned out, and, they drop horses off. They take them out to the desert. They just abandon them out there to starve to death and die of thirst. And so we have a tendency to go out there and try to save them. That's part of, being a rescue. And it's hard to be able to find a property where you can just, find another place and move everybody to. So we're here until we find a financial way to be able to get a better property that is alien-free but has lots of pasture for the horses.
Do you often wonder why that specific ranch is targeted the way it is?
I knew the history of the ranch from the very day that it was built in 1977 all the way till now, and this ranch has had nothing but one horror story happening on it after another. In fact, the guy that originally built this place, he built it as a surprise wife, and when he tried to bring her out to the property to show her his great achievement, she took one look at it and she goes, "Hell no, I'm not moving in there. This place has really strange energy. I don't want any part of it." And she practically divorced him because she said she didn't want any part of it, and it caused a big, row in their relationship. And then after that, this ranch became a place of irrepute, one might say. It was used as a whorehouse. It was used for off-street gambling or off-site gambling, for horse racing. It's been a place where a whole bunch of people came out here and tried to turn it into a militia. It's just had one thing after another. And so the people that have been here on this ranch, they have never done very well in terms of, their relationship with being here. I don't know if the ranch affected them or they were just, bad people to begin with or what. I don't know. But there was only like one other family. He actually tried to run it as a ranch. And unfortunately, their son committed suicide in the living room.
Oh, my.
And so, yeah, I mean, this is Walmart for paranormal. I mean, we got ghosts, we got, aliens, we got, you name it. It's all out there.
So have you had a lot of...
Let me turn you over to Alyzabeth for a second. She has something she wants to add to that.
Sure.
About the encounters and wanting to have encounters and stuff like that, and you being Rh negative. It's funny because I never had any, and I'm Rh negative. But if you want to look it up, you can look it up. There's all kinds of research and stuff done on it, and everybody talks about Rh negative. There's a high percentage of Rh negatives that have been abducted. Like, there's only a few positives, so that's kind of strange. And I thought, well, why don't I have any experiences? Why aren't they presenting themselves to me? And as soon as I came out to the ranch, it took a little bit, and I started seeing stuff. Things started happening, and then it started following me home. So I've done research on the fact that you can be abducted but not remember it. They can wipe your memory, but so you won't remember it if you have been. But if you come out and actively seek it, because my experience is I came out and I really put a lot of time into it, and it started happening, and then it started following me home, and now it's just a rabbit hole has gotten deeper. It's huge. So there's other things that I'll probably experience as long as I hang out here. And, it's Rainbow Valley to be exact. My friend Angelina lived out here, and I met her, and she lives up in Glendale, up in North Peoria. And I told her, I said, since you know about it, you should go down there and talk to John. And she's like, I'll never go back down there. It freaked her out. So when I thought, well, I don't know if I believe it. And then I came down here, and it happened to me. Exactly her account of what happened to her happened to me with the lights and stuff. So if you really want to find out the truth and see it for yourself, because you won't be able to prove it to anybody. I mean, maybe one day, video, you can't prove that. You can't, once you see it for yourself, that's it. You've seen it. You can't unsee it. So, you're going to, if you're a logical, sane person, it's going to rock your world. But it's worth it because it's part of the truth, and it'll keep you seeking, and it won't leave you frustrated, and you won't give up. Because, we need to figure out the truth. This stuff is really happening. It's happening not just here, but everywhere. And it will follow you home. So you'll have plenty of homework if you come out. And, you might have been abducted because you're Irish Native, you just don't remember it.
Excuse me. I think that one of the biggest questions a lot of people have on their mind as well is, will there be exposure, and will it be soon? Will we have full exposure to these? The whole world will finally know the truth?
Well, I would say an interesting dynamic, and that is the Chinese government just released a video, and I've seen it on YouTube, I've seen it on Facebook. It's out there, and they fully explain the fact that they have been dealing with aliens, grays, the whole works now for hundreds of years, and that they have lots and lots of information, and they're actually the first big government that's really saying, hey, look, this stuff exists. We have video, we have all sorts of stuff of it, and it's out there. So I think they did that to kind of like preempt Russia, because Putin was out there saying a few weeks ago that if America didn't release its information, that he was going to go ahead and release the information. All the WikiLeaks stuff that's coming out, that's out there now. So I don't think it's the government's wanting to really come out there and let the people in on what's really happening. It just seems to be happening. And we have met a lot of individuals here in Arizona that have direct contact or are actually from elsewhere. Okay, so they're here. Arizona seems to be a hub or a hot spot of alien activity for the entire United States. I have talked to several different members from several different races, and they have told me specifically that Arizona actually is got a relationship with ancient Egypt. And so there's a lot of individuals that are not only coming back, but there also are individuals that are coming from other places, and they're coming here specifically to Arizona to interact. So I think there's events that are coming that we're going to begin to be able to unwrap some of the information and get some direct contact. And I think we're in a position where, you're going to just see things that have never been disclosed before here very soon.
There are some artifacts they found in the Grand Canyon, and the Hopi claim to have come from under the crust of the earth. And those artifacts, that's Hopi land, is the Grand Canyon, and they found a bunch of Egyptian hieroglyphs and stuff in the Grand Canyon. I think it's around the 1900s, right?
Yes,
Country.
yes.
And I took a river trip down there for 7 days. We went in some of those caves, but I didn't really see anything because they're really dark, and of course they're not going to take you to the good. But the Hopi claim to have ties to coming from underneath the earth, and then the Egyptian artifacts over here, and then the pyramid in Alaska, and all that craziness. So yeah, the Egyptian ties are already there. You just have to dig for them. In the research, I found a lot of stuff that ties Arizona and basically the U.S. to Egypt. So it's a big rabbit hole.
How many different races of these aliens have you actually encountered?
Me, well, I guess you probably wouldn't know it if you. A lot of people say you wouldn't even recognize it. They just look like humanoids, humans. But I've the reptilians. They seem to be. This is a friend of mine was really caught into the reptilian thing, and she described what she had seen in such a way that it made me realize that I'd seen them in my past. I just didn't take notice of it. And when I started paying attention to basically you get a vibe, and then you just look at this person, and they look like, and I hate to use this, but this is the best way. You remember Men in Black, where Edgar's suit, where he takes that guy's skin, the alien takes the guy's skin and wears it as a suit?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the way his demeanor is, the way he acts, the way his movements are, the way, he does that jerky movement that they have, it's kind of like they don't know how to act in a human body. It's like they're not at home, or it looks like a neurological kind of problem, but it's different. It's a little bit more controlled than that, and they kind of look at you out the side of at the corner of their eye, and if you're looking at them straight on, you'll see their eyes change to the elongated pupil, and they have some of them have this really bad vibe, and they try to discombobulate you in your thoughts. They'll try to screw up what you're thinking, and so you can't get it. They confuse your thinking is what they do, or they try to. I've seen them in action do it to my friend at her shop, and we just looked at each other like, what is this person trying to do? Because we're both awake, and we can see that, but she didn't know it was a reptilian because she doesn't see it because she's not awake yet. But she tried to discombobulate my friend and make my friend angry. And see, they like to frustrate you and get you angry so they can discombobulate you for whatever agenda they have. I don't know what it is, but that's pretty much how it is to interact with one of them. And then the Greys, I've only seen them hiding behind chairs and stuff at John's. I haven't really dealt with them.
John, how many have you actually encountered being on that ranch?
Well, I would say this, and that is, we have had an experience here where we had somebody come out to the ranch to try to clear the negative energy that was here. And that person, Dr. B, Dr. Brandy Howe, she brought two individuals with her, and they were both not from this world. And we spent an entire day, July 30th of, I think it was 2011, with them. And then in the course of dealing and talking and discussing with them, three more showed up. And so those three represented three different races, and the other two represented two other races. So we've dealt with 5 different races that were active and willing participants, and answered questions and showed us artifacts and, showed us all sorts of things. So that pretty much explains that. Then, of course, there's the Greys. The Greys, we don't have any active communication or understanding of what they're about. All we have is the violent nature and the observations that, have come about because of the experiences that we've had with them.
Have these experiences caused any rifts in your in your marriage and stuff with your wife? Or, I mean, is that something that you just don't allow to come between you?
Well, my wife and I, we have it would take me an hour to explain how we met, but we have a very unusual relationship in the fact that we're both very spiritual people, and that we made a promise to each other that we wouldn't let anything come between us. And so, there's times that we fight, and there's times we argue and carry on and stuff. Like a married couple, we've been together 23 years. But it was hard for a while here in terms of, she just wanted to leave in a blind panic. And I told her, I said, if you got to go, go. But, I put a lot of money into this ranch. I don't have a place to go. This is my dream. And I'm not going to sacrifice these animals. I'm not sacrificing anybody. You've got your eyes wide open. You're seeing what's here. If you don't want to be here, go somewhere else. And, I'll still be married to you, but I need to clean this up and deal with it. And, I can't just walk away.
But I mean, have they had any, have they been able to mind control you guys against each other? Is that what they're about?
No, we haven't really seen that. What we do see is the fact that, you hear about fear paralysis, and I think we're sleep paralysis. And with my wife, I think that's happened to her a whole lot of times because she knows stuff happens to her. I mean, she sees the direct evidence, but she doesn't have the recall of it that I do. I'm not afraid of anything. And so, it just doesn't work on me. I mean, I've actually had a couple of situations where they tried to, nail me with that stuff, and they thought I was, out cold. And then to their chagrin, I sat up in the bed and I was like, didn't work, guys. Now you're screwed. I got you. And, so that kind of thing doesn't work on me at all.
I mean, I just wonder if all the races are evil or if they all have a different agenda with us.
I think that pretty much for the most part, from my own experience, most of the races are kind of like humans in the fact that they all have different agendas. They all have different behaviors and things that they want or don't want. And so there's no real way to categorize them. It's funny, we talk about racism, and, everybody talks about racism based on color, based on ethnicity and things like that. Now we got a whole different kind of racism. It's literally based on, there's a whole bunch of different races, and they're not from here. So, I guess from a social science point of view, that curve is going to have to be redefined. But, I don't really see any of the different alien races having a very, very specific, predictable type of behavior. Some are more assertive and more aggressive than others. But, they're all doing their own thing. And I tell you what, I've tried to get them to come out and, actually, have our own version of disclosure here on the ranch. For a while, I thought that was going to happen. They seem to support it. But it's like herding cats. I mean, you cannot get these guys to, all agree to any one thing all at the same time in the same place. At least I haven't been able to yet. So, it's just one of those things. They're like people. Everybody's got their own point of view, and they want what they want.
You hear about them when they abduct human beings. You hear about, them doing experiments and sometimes taking the sperm from men and the eggs from women. And you kind of, for me, I wonder exactly what their agenda is when they take that stuff from us. Are they trying to figure out what we're about? Are they trying to, clone us? Or, that's kind of the questions I wonder a lot, and they're questions that I've heard asked a lot.
Well, I share your observation about that. I'm not sure that I can answer that in a answer that is going to be concise, and it might be something that would be better off left for another show, because there is a lot of information about it, and recently we have been given a lot of insight to how this historically has developed in human culture, and specifically different parts of the world that are involved. and how the influence of various different alien populations is still present here on Earth right now, and how it is influencing the world.
So these are not aliens per se that live on Mars and Venus and in different planets like that, right? So when people think
No.
like that, they're thinking wrong.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not that it's wrong. It's just that it's not accurate. Okay, our solar system is kind of like it. To us, it's huge, and to us, it's amazing, and it's a big place. To a lot of these alien cultures, they have the ability to go any place they want to, and a lot of them have already done it. And so, when you come to our little neck of the universe, it's not a big deal to go from planet to planet. They can go any place they want to. So these guys are from much further away.
That makes a lot of sense, because I often wondered they have sent these hubs to look at these other planets and there's no life on them. And I'm thinking, if they're zapping in and out from our existence, to our planet and stuff, it would kind of seem strange that they would live on one of those planets versus an interdimensional thing.
Well, and again, see, humans have the ability to be able to detect, stimulus or stimuli from only the dimensions that we have the ability right now to be able to detect that. That doesn't mean that all around us aren't many other dimensions, and that there's tons and tons of different types of life and experiences that are habitating, for lack of another word, in our space. We just don't have the ability to detect it.
I believe that. I've from a young age, I've believed that we actually exist in, other people exist in a different plane than where we are. But I think that other people occupy the same space we do. They're just in another plane where we can't detect them and they can't detect us.
Exactly. And, I think that goes with ghosts. I think that goes with, a lot of the various different spiritual realms as well. So, we're just right now dealing with one plane of existence, but I think that, it's kind of like, 3 or 5 dimensional chessboard. There's a lot of stuff getting played all at the same time, and it's interacting. It's just we're not aware of it.
I think that would be very interesting and kind of exciting to be able to broaden that horizon a little bit and be able to kind of have a glimpse into what else is living in our realm. I think that would be pretty exciting.
Well, and, the thing is time is a man-created, description. And that doesn't mean that time as we experience time is the only way that time exists. So the past, the present, the future, I think it's all happening simultaneously. And so I think that some of these beings had the ability to be able to go back and forth and in and out of time. And, so I think that we're only experiencing reality, from a very thin slice, kind of like of a onion. And, there's many, many, many more different layers than what we really understand.
I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to come on with us. And I would so love to have you guys back on the show and share with us a little bit, when you have a little bit more to share with us. You guys are amazing. And I know that our listeners have learned a lot from you guys today, taking your time to be here with us. I know that it's probably rough to live on that ranch and actually go through it. But for us, it's, for the listeners out there, it's kind of exciting to actually hear the account that something like that actually is going on. I do feel bad for what it's caused in your life, and I will definitely pray for your wife. But, to actually have that knowledge that this stuff really does exist, I mean, that's something that not everybody has the opportunity to get to experience in their lifetime.
Well, I agree. I mean, I can, the part of me that sees the big picture realizes that this ranch represents something that's unique, or at least unique to what humans understand right now about what's happening here. From a personal point of view, yeah, when I was a kid, I never thought I was going to grow up and live on an alien ranch and deal with aliens. I was hoping for horses someday, but, I had no idea it was going to get this out of hand. It just, it just blows my mind even today to even think that, we're having to deal with this. But I believe in God, and I believe that, everything happens for a reason. And so, we're just going to have to deal with it and make the best of it.
Well, I definitely hope you guys will come back and share with us, the more experiences or whatever, you guys are looking into now. I really hope that when you have everything situated and stuff, you'll come back and share with us, because, I have had emails pouring in asking for you to come on the show. You've got to get him on the show. He's amazing. He's great. It's an awesome interview. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on with us. And I'd like to thank Alyzabeth for taking her time to come on with us as well.
Well, thank you, Sue. I would tell you this, and that is, we're putting the dots together. We're connecting the dots on some big things right now. And, very soon we'll be in a position to share that information. And I believe that it is going to be stuff that nobody's ever thought of or had it occur to them. It's insights that we're getting from faraway places, let's just say.
Research.
And it's research, because, as much as I'm good at being able to deal with immediacy, the experiences, Alyzabeth is unbelievable at being able to see how everything fits together and put it together. And then we talk about it, and then we realize that there's a lot of things, there's a lot of information that's already here, and people just aren't seeing it.
When you do research, when I do research, there are things that just don't fit into what your line of research is, but they kind of stick out in your mind, and so you file it away. And because it didn't make sense, or I didn't believe it existed, or I thought they were just conspiracy theory, crazy people. And but I left it in my head because, it could become relevant. I mean, to be a true scientist, you can't say, oh, that doesn't exist. You just have to hold it back and keep going with it. And if it finds a way into your research, then you look at it even further. And that's what I do. That's what I do, and that's what I've done. And we have on the horizon some really big information that we want to disclose, but it's premature now. It's not completely baked yet. I mean, I need more evidence. I'm always about more evidence, and John has to stop me because I want to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. And with this kind of area, this kind of situation, this genre of research, you can't do that. You can't. Unless you've got big people like even Dr. Greer, he's got all these people coming out and stating these high-ranking officials and stuff, and it's either you believe it or you don't believe it. But to experience it is all you really need to do. And then you will never, ever have a shadow of a doubt. You will know that it exists. You'll just want to prove more, and that's what's happened to me.
Well, I very much look forward to it, and I hope you guys will come back on the show and share it with us. I'm very excited and very thankful to have had the opportunity to learn and share with our guests today your experiences, and I can't thank you guys enough for taking your time to be with us today.
Well, thank you. StarDust Ranch is a pretty weird place. We're just trying to make the best of it, and sometimes when you end up with nothing but lemons, you got to make lemonade.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have a great day, and I look forward to talking with you guys again soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, you guys, that was an amazing interview. And again, I want to thank John and Alyzabeth so much for taking the time to be with us here. And you are the ones that flooded my email box with all these requests to have John on the show, and we were fortunate enough to have Alyzabeth joining him. And it is so fascinating, you guys. For me, this is why I do what I do. I absolutely love what I do. I get to chat with different people in different, cultures and different situations that they go through. And, to be able to experience what they've experienced through their eyes is absolutely amazing. And again, I send prayers for John's wife for full healing. And I hope everything goes okay with them, and I look very forward to having them back on the show. Well, that's all we have time for today. We post our shows on YouTube, and if you want to know more about our guests and upcoming shows, please visit our info2rail webpage. Just Google info2rail and click on our Google Sites page. I want to thank each and every one of you so much for joining us here at Info2rail. If it wasn't for the listeners and the guests, I would not be blessed, and God, of course, I would not be blessed to be able to do what I do. And I absolutely love what I do, to be able to chat with new people and, get the information out there to you guys. There's so much going on in the world that we have no idea what really goes on. And I'm so blessed and thankful to have the guests that I have on the show to share with us their experiences so that we can kind of broaden our horizons a little bit and see what goes on, things that we never even could imagine. So again, I want to thank you guys. You guys are amazing, both my guests and my listeners. We hope to see you here each and every week. And we got some great shows coming up for you. May God bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you in these uncertain times. We'll see you soon.